All right, so last but certainly not least, a good friend of mine, KHALID, who I met also working on Bernie's campaign and then really got to know him at the DNC in Philly. He's running for city council in the new city that just got created in South Fulton. He's running for District 6 city council, so I'll let KHALID tell you more about that. Take it away, KHALID.
Hey, so first of all, thank you all for staying all night. I am not going to talk about myself. I'm actually going to talk about us and how we win and how we make change. Because I think that if you understand that, you'll come out and volunteer for me, because you understand that volunteering for me is volunteering for change. So first I want to start by, so that's my little campaign sign or whatever. I want to start by saying there are 447,000 people in Atlanta, right? Like roughly 500,000 people in Atlanta. This whole talk right now is about like how we win, and it's going to be interactive. So the last mayor that we had elected, and don't answer if you've heard me do this before, but the last mayor that we had elected won in 2009. It was Kasim Breed. That was our last new mayor. Out of 500,000 people, how many people decided that election? What was the difference in votes? Someone throw out a number and guess.
Oh, the difference between
Yes.
won and lost? 4,000?
Yeah, 4,000.
Wasn't it like 800?
No, 450?
714. 714 votes. There was a runoff. 714 people decided who the mayor of 500,000 people would be. So my city is a little bit smaller than that, but kind of not really, right? So this is the city of South Fulton. It's a little hard to see. Just know this. How many of you are from Atlanta? Okay. So most of you are not from Atlanta. I'm not going to bore you. Just remember this. Atlanta is 132 square miles. The city of South Fulton is 107 square miles. It is the largest city. It will be the largest city by land area in Atlanta outside of Atlanta. It'll be the largest city that we've created. It'll be the largest majority black city that's been created since 1870. Yeah, so like this is really important stuff. But it's not a very populated city. Right now, it's estimated there are about 100,000 people in the city. We think there's really more. We think there's 200,000. One of the first things we're going to do as a city is we're going to make sure that we get counted properly for the census, because that's how they divide money up in federal grants. Got to know all the strategy stuff. But just know right now there are 100,000 people, right? So you take that 714 and divide it by 5, right? Because we're a fifth of the size of Atlanta. That's like 143 people. We're probably going to have a runoff. There are 9 people running for mayor of the city of South Fulton. There are like 19 people running for mayor of the city of Atlanta. So probably like 143 people are going to decide who the mayor of this city is. I'm running for city council in this little district here, right? And so a little bit about, you see these districts are different sizes, right? And so this is just a little primer about how gerrymandering starts, right? The whole idea is that each person is supposed to represent a certain number of people, right? So like we have all of these house districts in Georgia, right? Because each house district is supposed to represent like 17,000 people or whatever. So each one of these districts is supposed to represent about 12,500 people, because that's 100,000 divided by 7. My district is so small because it's the most populated district, right? This district is so large because it's not populated. So it looks like it's unfair, but this is why every 10 years we redraw lines, right? It's because we take a census and we're trying to make it so that it's equal, that each representative represents an equal number of people, and we have to keep redrawing the lines because people move. But you take that 100,000 people, right? You divide it by 7. So you take that 143 people that we're now saying are going to decide our mayor, you divide that by 7. That's like 20 folks. I'll probably have a runoff. 20 people will probably decide who is going to represent the 12,000 people in this district. So what we have to do is figure out who those 20 people are. And this is why it should matter to you. It should matter to you because the same way that we figure out who these 20 people are that are going to decide if I get to be the city council, That's the same way we decide. That's the same way that we find the 714 people that are going to make Vincent Fort mayor. That's the same way we find the 10,000 people that will pick our next governor, or the 100,000 people that are going to turn our state blue so that we win the electoral college for a progressive person, right? This is how elections are decided. Republicans figured this out about 20 years ago. There's a great book. It's called Rat Fucked. That is literally the name of the book. And basically, so Sarah kind of touched on that this firm drew the districting maps. It wasn't a bunch of people at a firm. It was a computer. It was an algorithm. This is where we are now. Algorithms and computers are deciding who wins elections. And until we get into that kind of math, we won't know how to do it. But the first thing is that we have to be organized. So we cannot change any policies. Marching is great, right? Protesting is great, but they don't change policies. We can't change, the people who change policies are our elected officials. And we can't change anything until we start getting our people elected, right? So that's what all of these things are about. So the first thing that I'm gonna tell you, if you go to my website, KHALIDcares.com, under the volunteer tab, and there's gonna be, I'm gonna ask all of you to sign up and volunteer, right? But if you just remember KHALIDcares.com, this is a list of election dates. Anytime you're planning a meeting, anytime you're planning a march, please do not plan it during these dates. Like, seriously. We have, in our city, we have 1 day of Saturday voting. I have been endorsed by our Revolution, and I've also been endorsed by the Democratic Socialists of America. That is Bernie Sanders' group. They're having a meeting this Saturday from like 2 to 4. When they should be knocking on doors, helping me get people to the polls, right? So while we're meeting, other people will be out getting their folks to the polls. We got to stop doing shit like that. That's why we lose all the time, right? Because we don't get organized. So the how many people know about John Ossoff's district, right? Like the Georgia 6. There are probably people that are working on that. Don't plan anything on April 18th or the weekend around April 18th because that is his election day, right? You need to know when these early voting dates are for whatever district you're in. It's different because his district covers 3 different counties. So I have all of that up there. But before, the key thing is before you plan a meeting or a march or a rally, check this calendar. Because you should probably be on these days in one of these places trying to get a progressive person elected. Because nothing else that you're doing is going to change the policy but that, right? So how do we find these people? People have started making all these really great computer programs. Republicans have been doing it for a while. Barack Obama had one. Howard Dean created one called Vote Builder. Well, he got some people that were really, really smart to create this thing called Vote Builder, right? So I'm going to give you a little introduction to Vote Builder. Vote Builder is a computer system that they basically get all of their data from the Secretary of State. They also get a bunch of data from other places, like if you've ever donated on ActBlue or MoveOn.org or whatever. They buy stuff. They buy, it's the age of computers. I don't know where they buy all the information from. But the most important piece of information, this is a real person. Don't write any of this information down. But the most important information is how they vote. So one of the reasons that Bernie Sanders is not our president is because about half our states have closed primaries, which means that you have to declare that you're a Democrat or a Republican to participate, right? When you go in to vote in the primary, how many people have voted? Because I know everyone's not voting each year. So when you go in to vote in the primary, you have to say I'm a Democrat, and then you get to choose from a list of Democrats, or you say I'm a Republican and get to choose from a list of Republicans. If you don't identify as either, you don't get to choose from the list, and you don't get to vote until the 2 parties have picked who their person is. And so lots of people who would have voted for Bernie in many states like many states like New York or here, they couldn't vote in the primaries. But one of the advantages of this closed primary system, so that's what a closed primary is. You have to declare what you are. One of the advantages of that closed primary is that we can use that information to pretty much predict how someone's going to vote. So this is this person's voting record. In the primary, you see YD. That means that he pulled a Democratic ballot, right? In the presidential primary, you see that he pulled a Republican ballot. So this is a voter who seems to vote Democrat on a local level, but maybe votes Republican on a presidential level. That's really important because I'm a Democrat. It doesn't matter because it's a nonpartisan election. But if it was a partisan election, that would be important to me. You can also see where they vote in the municipals and in the runoffs and all of that. So there's a lot of more information about race and all of that, and you can see this likely party down here. The algorithm begins to calculate a score mostly based on their voting record, but also based on things like race. We know that white men tend to vote Republican. We also know that they tend to be more wishy-washy in their voting, right? Women of color, black women in particular, are the most consistent voters in America, and they most consistently vote Democrat, right? So 85% of black women voted Democrat. And so if you're a black woman and you have a kind of iffy voting record, the algorithm is going to give you a few extra points and be like it's a high probability that you're a Democrat. They score you on all of these other things. And these scores aren't so great yet, but like every algorithm, they're getting better every day. Their scores for how do you feel about abortion? How do you feel about gun control? How do you feel about gay marriage? How do you feel about whatever, so they score you on all these things. How you feel about the minimum wage, how you feel about free college, right? And what happens is, so this is how we find the voters. I say, find me everybody in my district. And I'm gonna give you a real example. I say, so in my district, the city is 89% black. And I want to back up because I'm rushing because I know we've been here for a long time. But this is another reason why local elections are important. I'm going to give you 3 reasons that local elections are important. 1, local elections are important because this is where we learn the strategies and train the strategists who are going to win the bigger races. My race, 12,000 voters. There are 12,000 people. There are only actually 5,000 people who actually vote, right? City of Atlanta, 100,000 voters. So how do you we're practicing how to find Vincent Fort's 714 people with a much smaller pool, right? We're practicing, we're training people how to knock on doors. The same things that we're going to need to make Vincent Fort mayor or to get a Democrat elected to Tom Price's seat or to get a Democrat elected or a progressive elected as a governor. It's the same strategies, right? And so we got to practice them. We need people that can go out and knock on doors and convince voters. Well, if you can't convince voters in a 97% black Democratic district to vote for a progressive Democrat, then you're probably not going to be good at going to Dunwoody and Sandy Springs convincing moderate Democrats to vote for a progressive, right? So you got to practice this stuff. So that's the first thing. The second reason is we have to build a pipeline for leadership. The average age and the leadership of the U.S. Congress, right, in the House, Nancy Pelosi and James Clyburn and all these people that you hear about all the time, they're like all 70-something. Their average age is like 72 years old. Do you know what the average age of the Republican leadership of the House is? 42, right? The average age of liberal justices on the Supreme Court, 70-something. Average age of conservative justices on the Supreme Court, 45, right? So they are training young people, maybe it's not 45, maybe it's like 55, but they're like training people to move up into these seats. So we have to win city council seats. Before you can win a congressional seat, before we have a progressive governor, they have to have experience in a city council or in a county commission or on a school board. You don't just come out of nowhere and run. Well, maybe you do come out of nowhere and run for president, but it doesn't normally work, right? So, and I truly believe because he has no experience, it's going to be a train wreck. Like, hopefully we will not be living in like a post-apocalyptic nuclear world because we have this idiot in the White House. But we have to train people. So that's the second reason. The third reason, and this is the most important reason, we're building leadership pipelines. We're building winning strategies. We're building winning arguments. So before I did this work, I worked for Black Lives Matter. I helped organize the Atlanta chapter of Black Lives Matter. We spent the past 2 years trying to reform housing issues. We spent the past 2 years trying to get the police chief fired, right? And trying to do police reform. We weren't very successful. South Fulton is a brand new city. If I win my city council seat, I will be writing the ordinances for marijuana. We don't have to get them changed the way we do in Atlanta, because I'm going to write them. We don't have to get a police chief fired or change the way we police, because I'm going to have a vote on who the new police chief is, and I'm going to get to write his job description, right? And the person who's going to be appointing that person is the mayor, right? And guess what? The campaign manager for one of the mayors is sitting here in this room and is an R Revolution person. This is a Bernie-crat, right? So this is how we take shit over, right? And so that being said, those are the reasons that the local races are important, and this is how we're going to win the local race. So in my local race, my district is probably like 99% African American, and there's a big concern about crime. Because we've had a couple of, you probably seen on the news about like whatever. They're always over-reporting on crime in South Side of every city in every, in the country, right? But so people are scared about crime. So I said, show me all the people who voted in 2016, and they voted in at least one of these other races, either the primary or a previous municipal race or a runoff. Because I knew that our last two runoffs were for crime-related things. They were for a solicitor, which is like the DA of misdemeanor courts, and they were for a sheriff, right? So what I'm looking for, because what we know is that in off-year elections, that the turnout is around 13% or less. So there are 12,000 people in my district. 7,000 of them are registered to vote. Probably about 13% of those people are going to turn out. So I'm trying to figure out, once again, who are those 13 people? Who are those 20? Who are those 13%? Who are those 20 people? Who are those 714 people? And so this is a part of the art, right? It's not pure math. This is the part of the art that we have to practice. And we're trying to talk to this algorithm and say, show me, what do I need to ask you so that you show me the people that are going to show up on March 21st, which is my election, which is in 12 days. So I go through these. I can use these scores. I can use the voting history. Like I said, I use this voting history. And the next thing I do is that I create a script. I don't know if that's really the next thing I do or if that's just snuck in there somehow. Anyway, so this is actually the next thing. So I say, show me people who voted in 2 out of 3 of these elections. You see I got this total of 1,157 people, right? So these are all of the people. The computer says these are all the people. This is where all of them live. So then I go in and I draw all of these turfs. We call it cutting turf. So if you come knock doors with me this Saturday or next Saturday, you'll be knocking doors in one of these turfs. Then for the turfs, I make this little script. So you'll actually know what to say on the door. We'll also give you like a super extensive training, but you'll know what to say on the door, right? So now here comes the fun part. Everybody who stayed, you got to download that. You created your action ID. You sign in with your action ID. It's going to ask you to enter a list number. I'm going to give you this list number. All the list numbers are 13 digits, 8 on the left, 5 on the right. So put in this list number, 2140 9743. And then on the other side of the hyphen is 80334. When you got it, say I got it. The first, you should see a set of lists that says something like Creole Road. That should come up.
The last part?
Yeah, I put those last ones.
All right. 80334. Folks got it? All right, so how many people have used minivan before? Awesome. If you've used it before, like maybe help somebody out. They're looking confused. The 3 little lines up here at the top, that's the menu button. So you're going to go and hit the menu button, and you're going to hit map. Remember how I showed you where I drew the little circles around the map? It's going to zoom in. You're going to see a map. This is an actual street. These are actual people. Each one of these balloons is an actual house. Remember, I asked the algorithm, show me people that voted in 2 out of the 3 of these last elections, right? Each one of those balloons is a house. The number in the balloon are the number of people in the house that match that algorithm. These are what we call super voters. These are the people who are going to show up on March 21st. This is what Republicans have done to win. This is why since 2007 we've lost 1,000 House seats, right? We've lost 1,000 elections because we get out, we want to do a rally, we want to go knock on everybody's door in the neighborhood. They go out and knock on the doors of the people. Half the time, half the people, if you went and knocked on everybody's door in my neighborhood, first of all, there's not enough of us to cover all 7,000 voters in my district. So we're wasting time. Second of all, there are more than 7,000 people in my district, which means if you went and knocked on every door on the street, half the people you knocked on, they're not even registered to vote. Or they're not registered to vote in this election, in this city, in this county, whatever, right? Or they're registered to vote, but they just voted for the president and they don't really vote in any other elections. A lot of people, they just go in, they vote for the president, they don't even vote for all the rest of the shit on the ballot, right? Like they just vote and they leave. We don't want those people because they're not gonna, if you didn't vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016, you're not coming out to vote for me, right? Like who am I? So go ahead and click on one of those houses and you'll see an address and you'll see another circle that just duplicates. These are the 2 people. So I think I'm at Neville's Road. If you guys can find that, it's fine. If you can't, just click on anything. These are the 2 people that live in that house that match that algorithm, Alton and Gloria. So before you even go and knock on their door, you're going to know their names. You're going to know their age. You're going to know if they're male or female. So you know who you're looking for, right? So if you go and knock on the door and I come to the door, I'm not a 73-year-old man, right? So I'm not really who you're looking for. You can talk to me anyway, but you're probably going to have to come back if you didn't get that person, right? So there's a whole script. If you look on it, every time, for every question in the script, there's a list of responses. You get to program all of these responses in. So this is another part of the art. You have to figure out, what do I ask people? How do I engage voters? This is the stuff, I curse a lot. This is the stuff that we need to practice, right? This is how we figure out how we win. What do we need to be asking people in Atlanta to get Vincent Ford elected, right? What we need to figure out, what do they care about? Because when we take that information, you see this little button, I keep going up to my computer, but that little button there, that's a sync button. So maybe the first time we go out and we canvass, we ask people, what do you care about? We sync that back, we find out that people's number one issue isn't crime, it's actually education. We should be talking about education, right? A lot of times candidates have this thing they want to talk about. They want to talk about affordable housing, or they want to talk about marijuana decriminalization, but maybe the most important thing that people want to talk about is student achievement. So this is how we begin to tailor our messages, right? This is, again, how we win races. Go over here, the next tab over is the details tab. This is how we get in touch with people for fundraising. The information that is in Vote Builder, most of it comes from the Secretary of State's website. Most of that comes from the voter registration card that you filled out. How many people have already, most of y'all are like not over 30. How many of you have already changed an address or a number from what you put on your voter registration card when you're 18? That shit is out of date, right? So this is how we get it back in date. If you look at the details tab, we can add phone numbers, we can add emails. We sync that. It goes back to like the big computer. The party has access to it. You have access to it as a candidate. Once you've knocked on all the doors, you hit that sync button. Please don't do it because you'll mess up my data. But you click that sync button, and all of that stuff ends up back on my computer. Here's the other cool thing. So that's what you're doing if you're knocking on doors. We can have people make phone calls in the same way. How many people have gotten a robocall? You hate those? They really suck. We have a law now that you can't robocall cell phones, but a person can call a cell phone. And if we have the right number, we can call and ask those people to vote. So the same way that we do all that stuff on our phones with Minivan, we can do that same thing. You can sit at home. So for those of you all who don't want to come out and knock on doors, you don't like dogs, maybe you can't get down to South Fulton, maybe you just don't want to come. You can sit in your bed and make phone calls for me, for Vincent Ford, for John Ossoff, for Jason Carter if he decides to run for governor again, whoever, right? You can make phone calls for our young Democratic candidates of your fellow students. You do it through this thing called the virtual phone bank. We send the numbers to you, we send the script to you, you fill the same thing out. So what I'm going to ask everybody to do now is go to KHALIDcares.com/volunteer. My election is in 12 days. That means we have 2 more weekends. This Saturday and Sunday and next Saturday and Sunday, and then people are going to vote. So I still have a few hundred doors that I need people to knock. I still have 1,000 or so people that I need to hear folks, they need to hear from someone in person. We will give you a script. We will give you training. We'll tell you stuff about the city. Like, I won't just say, go knock on this person's door, right? We'll tag you up with, we'll team you up with people who need to do that. So please, 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 if you are available on the weekends, if you're available during the week, because I do this full time, I'm going to go knocking on doors tomorrow, right? Anytime you're available, just say, like, this is when I'm available. I'll knock doors. I'll make phone calls. I'm available in the mornings, the evenings.
Really?
Yes.
Where it says neighborhood or subdivision?
You can just put wherever you live. If you live in Atlanta, if you go to Georgia State, yeah, you can just put whatever. So Saturdays and Sundays, we meet at this place. It is the Market Garden. It's a health food store on Old National. Please, please, please come out. You can also find me on Facebook. You can find me on all these things. And once again, this really isn't about me, because I'm probably going to win. I'm the only person in my district that is using this stuff. I am outworking everyone. If I don't win, it's just because, like, people are fucked up and they just want they want to make a bad choice, right? It won't be because I didn't have enough volunteers or I didn't knock enough doors, because I'm doing all those things. But the thing is that you all need to learn this so that you can take it back to your counties and your parties, be it Democrat, be it Republican, be it Green. Well, no, be it Democrat, be it Green. You can take it back and use it in other races. You can train other people on how to do this. And it's not just, once again, it's not just downloading an app. It's getting comfortable knocking on doors. It is really scary to go up to somebody's door that you don't know, in a neighborhood that you don't know, with people that don't look like you, and start talking about this candidate that you just met last week. But, like, that's how we win races. And so you got to get comfortable with it, and you've got to teach other people how to get comfortable with it. And then once you've mastered that, then you've got to go back and master, like, all of this stuff. You got to master how to build a list, how to find the voters that are going to flip a district, because this is how we win. So thanks so much.
Questions for Lee? Going once? All right. Thank y'all for coming. That's all we got for today. You can help yourself to a button. If you didn't sign up for our email list, there's cards and info over here. Help yourself. Thank y'all again for coming.
We also have yard signs.
Oh, yeah, Fort Yard sign. If you got a yard in Atlanta, put it up.
You want one? Yeah, dude, you too. Thanks for saying that. Appreciate it.